And here we go. This is Mike Lodge. I am the business advisor, and I'm glad that you have joined me. It's a good day. It's a good morning, I mean, it's nice and cool here this morning. It's only 71 degrees this morning, and it feels good. Took the dog out, and I didn't want to come back in because it felt so good. I love that kind of weather. I love it when it starts getting cooler. I was reading an article yesterday about where we should go to during this fall season to see all of the leaves falling and turning bright reds. It's a beautiful sight. Here at my house, we get so much falling leaves that the carpet of the floor is just completely orange red. It's absolutely beautiful, but it's also a lot of work because I got to go out and sweep it all up. Except out front where the gardeners do it, but in my back, it literally falls all over my porch. In fact, excuse me, I just looked out there a few minutes ago, and there's leaves already starting to come down, and some acorns. I tell you, when those acorns fall from the tree, they're like little bullets, and they ricochet all over they hit the floor of the porch, and then it ricochets all over the place. So you hear these things coming down, and they literally sound like bullets coming down from the tall trees here. These trees are old trees, and they're very, very tall. So when it drops, it really drops. Listen, I have been thinking about this Ukraine-Russia situation, how it has affected the entire world's economy. But it's really not Russia who started this bad economy. It is really the bad policies of governments, world leaders, especially here in the United States. We have had some really bad policies that cut off our oil production, that cut off certain transportation issues. It just literally, these problems grew and grew and grew, and it's never calmed down. Right now we have our gasoline prices going up. We have our diesel prices going up. We have our food prices going up, if I can talk right. Food prices going up. So we have an economic situation that is not being reported by our governments or by our business leaders on Wall Street because they have a different view of what an economy is, and they don't understand that what affects us down at our levels really does harm us. So I was chatting with an individual yesterday on one of the social media networks. And we were talking about, of course, Elon Musk had several months ago, in 2022, provided this Starlink internet and how it got shut off during the war because Elon Musk felt that he did not want the war to escalate, because what the Ukraine wanted to do with his Starlink was to send missiles over to the Russian Navy and sink Russian ships, lots of them. And he did not want to be in collusion with the Ukrainians using his internet service. So he had shut it down several weeks ago because it was just becoming too expensive. It was already at $100 million, so he said, okay, I've got to shut this down, or the Defense Department has to start paying for it. And so he only put it up when requested by the Ukraine government. And one of the requests was to start it up again so that they could shoot their missiles over to the Russian ships through drones and destroy the ships, which would have caused possibly a nuclear situation. Not just with Ukraine, but with the United States also. So anyway, we were talking about this, and I said, what has to happen is that you need to sit down and beginning to start peace talks, and some of that territory that is owned or that used to be owned by Ukraine, like Crimea, you may lose that territory. So she wrote back. And in fact, what started this all was that George Takei of television fame, and he made this statement. So he goes, the Daily Beast is reporting that Elon Musk ordered engineers to switch off his Starlink satellites just as Ukraine was preparing to attack the Russian naval fleet with drones. He said he feared nuclear retaliation by Russia. It's high time we ask the question, this George guy says, how much power and influence does it make sense to hand to just one person? Well, let's think about this. Starlink is Elon Musk's business. He can turn it on and turn it off whenever he wants to. And perhaps he did, my argument would be, perhaps he did an ethical movement by shutting it off and only allowing them once they had requested it. If there was a war advance that they needed it to be used, they would call Elon Musk and then he would turn it on for them to use it. But this was a situation where he felt it would lead to a nuclear chaos. And so he probably did the ethical thing, and he made the best business sense because it had cost him already $100 million to provide this internet service for free to the Ukraine people. So anyway, my response was that they need to start sitting down and having peace talks and also doing negotiations. They should start negotiations now. Except the problem is that we've got Ukraine and we've got the United States that don't want a peace process at the moment. They want to continue this war against Putin because that's their agenda, is to get Putin. So they don't want to talk peace or territory disputes. So I responded and said that I trust Elon's decision in that, and I think that he made a moral decision, an ethical decision. And by the way, I also made the argument that this is not our war, and this has done so much harm to the American people financially and our military, as all of our assets leave here and go over there. Now we have to buy all new assets. By the way, that was the argument by McConnell yesterday. We've given all this stuff to Russia. Now we get to buy new stuff. However, that new stuff is exactly what we sent there, so we're not really getting new stuff. We just have new steel. That's all that we have. So my other concern, one person responded back on appeasement, because she feels that if you start talking about territory and giving back territory and moving territory, that's an appeasement. And her question to me was, appeasement to authoritarians who conduct expansionists does not have a good track record. I said, what do you mean? And she says, that's fact. And my response back to her was, where did you get that fact? And she responded, from reading history, see Chamberlain assessment of Germany and then Japan, see Saddam Hussein in 1991, see Portugal's history of annexation and assessment. Care to find me any example of when assessment has the desired effect? And I said, yeah, it's being done right now. And this was my response. I'll read it to you in full. As you know, appeasement is a diplomatic term. It is to bring parties together to make concessions to come to some type of agreement. I use it in mediation between parties daily. Diplomatically, it is used when trying to bring countries together to solve territory or other disputes. With every diplomatic resolve, there can be issues later that disrupt the agreement. Is appeasement being done now and working? The answer is yes. The U.S. and China are using appeasement in dealing with the China Sea and Taiwan. Diplomats are working out concessions to keep the peace with Taiwan and China. Trade concessions are being made in other issues with oil to keep the peace and not escalating into war. Right now, it is working. Will it continue? Who knows? Ukraine and Russia may have to adjust territories that they hold, make concessions, but they have to sit down and negotiate. And the U.S. is not pushing peace talks because they have an agenda against Putin. The U.S. right now in Ukraine are the issue to peace. So if we were able to sit down and talk about peace, we could get the wheat flows and the barley flows and the oil flows and everything else. Now, what is happening now, if you look at the UA, they are using Russian-made oil products. That's gone. Remember how United, the EU, EIEIO. The EU was a ally of ours, but they can't hold out any longer. Germany can't hold out any longer. Their economies are at the near brink because they cannot get people to work. They cannot heat houses. And winter's coming, so they have got to get this oil flowing back into their countries, and they've got to get the wheat and everything else flowing into their countries. They can't wait for America and the Ukraine to finally say, okay, we need to sit down and talk. They can't wait for it any longer. And if you look at it, Russia has not been hurt by any of these embargoes. They haven't been hurt. In fact, if you look, and I'll put the link down below, if you look at their ports, it's buzzing. Even at the time period before the war started, their ports are buzzing. They're back into the world marketplace. So all of this stuff that the United States has done against Russia just has not worked. And it will not work. Now, we do have a peace proposal for all parties to sit down, and that comes from China. And it should have come from the United States. But no, it comes from China. So we have to get beyond this point of war because it's doing too much damage to the worldwide economy. In the United States, we're still able to produce a little bit of oil, enough oil to keep us going, but the prices are way up. And in fact, we're almost to $100 a barrel at the moment. I don't know what it is this morning when I do this podcast. But certainly, my gas prices have gone up. Diesel prices have gone up. We're at $4.59 here in South Carolina at the moment for diesel. I can't remember. It's $4.39 or $4.59. Either way, it's too high. And so when people who are delivering vegetables and food goods and bread and everything else to the grocery stores, it now costs them more to do that. So that gets passed on to you and me, and we're having to pay that. If we're able to resolve this issue between Russia and Ukraine and the United States, because we stuck our heads into it, and it's not even our border, not even our war, but we got into it because the president and senators and Republican senators wanted to go after Putin, but it has not worked. Russia can just sit there. They've got money coming in. Their banking systems are okay. And yet, Russia can just sit there. They can just wait it out. Remember, Ukraine doesn't have anything except us as a dependent. They are our dependents. We should get them as a tax write-off on our personal income tax returns. But we can't do this any longer because it's just costing the American people too much money. Our deficits have just exploded because of all of this nonsense. So we have to have a different way of thinking. Listen, if you have any business questions, send it to me at thebusinessadvisor@gmail.com. And if you would like to sit down regarding business issues within your company, or if you want to start a new company, you can sit down with me confidentially by booking online at www.lodge-co.com. Everybody go out and have a great day. Almost the weekend. It went by fast, didn't it? Talk with you soon. God bless. Bye.